Hi, I'm Susie at firehouse.com, and we're here at the National Fallen Firefighter Memorial with Cathy Hedrick. Good afternoon, Cathy.
Good afternoon, Susie. It's good to see you.
Cathy, how did you get involved with the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial, if we can ask you to share your story with us?
Well, Susie, it actually began in 1992, one night in January. My son was a volunteer firefighter in Prince George's County, Maryland, and they were on a house fire and search and rescue for a potentially trapped child. And whatever could go wrong that night did, and my son and the 7-year-old both died that night. And therefore, I was introduced to the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Service the following October when Kenny was honored at the National Memorial Service. That was my first inkling that there were actually people across this country who had experienced similar circumstances and similar tragedies that my husband and I did. My husband, who is a longtime volunteer in Prince George's County, Maryland, 45 years as a volunteer, and at the time of our son's death, he was actually the fire chief of Morningside Volunteer Fire Department. So we had kind of a unique situation. But my introduction here was that memorial service, and I found out that there is a large support network across this country. There are families who send their loved ones out when you call 911 and trust that they're going to come home every single time. And this memorial unfortunately proves that they don't. There are many difficult sacrifices that are made, and Kenny was one of those.
Well, how did you end up, you come back every year and you're actually on staff now to help families in similar situations?
What happened was that first year you're here, and it's such a beautiful service here, I was still kind of in the state of shock. I don't really remember a whole lot other than reviewing videos and pictures. I really don't remember receiving the flag and the rose. I've seen it in pictures. So my husband and I both decided we wanted to come back the next October and re-witness this whole memorial service and experience it again through the other families. And that's when we were approached by some volunteers and people working the Memorial Weekend that year said, would you and your husband like to come back the next year and help us volunteer? And we said, we would love to give back. So my husband and I both started volunteering here in 1995, involved heavily with family registration. And this has grown exponentially into one volunteer myself at family registration to 100 returning family members every year to come in to greet and help the new members. We will have over 1,000 family members this October. So that's how I began. I began initially volunteering, and I had a career in nursing. So then in 2004, the executive director here, Ron Sarnicki, asked me if I would consider working for the foundation full-time. I had been volunteering and doing some speaking engagements across the country at the time, and I said, how many people have the opportunity to go from a career they love, which I had in nursing, to a job here that I'm very passionate about? So I am the first family member survivor that the foundation hired full-time. And my job description is forever evolving. There are so many things that a survivor on staff can help with, decisions about what might affect a survivor as far as programs, and even the reconfiguration of the memorial was a huge decision to make. So having a survivor on staff has its benefits, and for me, how rewarding, and what a legacy for my son. Everybody from the East Coast to the West Coast knows Kenny's name, and Morningside, by the way. So,
well, when you go around the country, you do more than talk about the foundation, which I guess is your first. What else do you talk about? I understand there's a program with Courage to Be Safe and Everyone Goes Home.
Several years ago, back in 2004, our executive director and some of the family members really wanted to make a push, an effort to reduce the number of line-of-duty deaths in this country. We're still seeing over 100, and one is way too many. So 100 was just not acceptable in any shape or form. So an initiative began within the foundation itself and we called it Everyone Goes Home. And fire service leaders around the country came together and agreed on 16 initiatives that would help motivate and show the firefighters not necessarily firefighting techniques, but having the courage to fight fire smarter, to ensure that they go home every night at the end of their shift to their families. So when we go across the country, we talk about having the courage to be safe, to be able to stand up when they realize maybe that empty warehouse is not worth this crew. Maybe we can do something different. Yes, there is a family trapped in here. We will risk everything. So those are the types of things I will talk about across the country, just showing the firefighters that it is important for them. They have a family at home, and we are the ones who are left behind if they don't play smart.
In a couple weeks, the campus will be full with returning survivors and families. How many people are you planning to see? And they come on their own dime, is that right?
Our Survivor Support Network, God love our survivors like myself, they come back every year to help volunteer and to welcome and to guide the new families through this process of the weekend. They come on their own time. They come on their own travel expenses every year. And some of them have been coming back every year since their firefighter was honored. We have approximately 100 returning survivor volunteers every year, and we're known as the red shirts. You'll see the survivors around campus wearing the red shirts, and everyone knows that those are family members of fallen firefighters from years past.
And you'll have a job for everybody, right?
Everyone who comes back, I will give you a job. The foundation staff will find you something to do. If it's just showing someone how to get from building A to building B. This year, October, we will have already, as of last night, we have over 1,000, I think it's 1,070 family members already registered for this coming weekend. That's a huge number, including children. And that's 122 fallen firefighters whose names will be honored this October, this Memorial Weekend. And we, the returning survivors, will embrace those new families, guide them through it, show them that there is some light at the end of that tunnel, because here I am, almost 18 years later, and I could not have done or feel as good about myself and my life if it hadn't been for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation showing me that I wasn't alone in this journey.
So there are support groups throughout the weekend for fellow firefighters, mothers, sisters, fathers.
That was probably the turning point when I first came to the Memorial Weekend. The family weekend, the first one was in 1993 when my family came. And in the afternoon on Saturday, what they do is they have grief counseling sessions where the family members are put into groups according to their relationship to the firefighter, which is so unique. So what you have is mothers like myself in a room with other mothers. You have co-workers, buddies of that firefighter in a room with other co-workers from across the country. And that was the first time in almost 20 months that I was in a room with other moms and realized that my life had changed, but so had theirs. I say to this day, I am fortunate. My fire department and the state of Maryland and Prince George's County and Morningside stepped up to the plate and helped support and guide us through this journey, and they're still there for me today. A lot of the mothers in that room, I found out, were very angry, disappointed, because they'd never got that kind of support. And it wasn't because the fire departments didn't want to, they just didn't know what to do. And out of that, later on, in 1990s, we developed programs to address those issues with the fire departments across the country.
That's great. Thanks a lot for your help, Cathy, and good luck and everything you're doing up here. And it sounds like you really, really have contributed. And I know people across the country appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Again, the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation is a unique foundation in the way it works its support programs and its memorial service. Thank you, Susie.
Yep. Thanks.